This is Tabletop Weekly, and we are Solarian Games. I'm Jason.
I'm Pete.
And we are joined this week by a special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Ciao, paisans. I'm Joey Royale of Get Haunted Industries. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So for this week's stories, we have got Kurt Vonnegut's Lost War Game, Nine Men's Morris. The first Discworld actual play is out from Modiphius, and we're going to talk about Weird Heroes of Public Access with a real hardcover coming out soon. All right, so let's get stuck right into it. First thing we want to talk about is Kurt Vonnegut's Lost War Game. And I've got one right here, so I'll bring this up. Back in 1956, Kurt Vonnegut was a struggling writer who had one or two books out that were not well, I won't say they weren't well received, but they didn't sell. He wasn't making any money off of it. Around that time, he tried his hand at running a car dealership and went bankrupt within a year. And one of the other things he tried doing at the time was something a lot of us might know something about, which is creating a board game and hoping that that would be his ticket to riches. He spent a long time working on it. It was called GHQ, and he was very proud of it, play tested it for a very long time. Did not ever get it published, never got it sold, and it sort of became one of those legends that some people who knew enough about Vonnegut might be able to at least refer to, but nobody had seen it. Until recently, when some folks actually did go through his archives working with his son, and they came out with it, and it is now out. And I don't know if I'm holding this up on the screen very well. Am I?
You are. Hold on. Let me. There you go. A little higher.
Okay, a little higher. I'll just stay behind it here.
There you go.
So this is Kurt Vonnegut's GHQ. I've had a chance to play it, and I'm going to tell you it is ridiculously fun. I'll tell you a little bit about it. I will open it up here. Toss this box aside. You know what? Before I even show you the game, what I want to show you is how they've packaged it. So the first thing you get when you open this is you get a facsimile of the letter that he wrote to the board game publisher. And I'm going to go ahead and read some of it just because I love it that much. To Mr. Henry Salfield of the Salfield Game Company, Akron, Ohio. Dear Mr. Salfield, I'm writing to you at the suggestion of your cousin and my neighbor, Mike Handy. Mike Handy. I have invented a board game which Mike has seen and seems to like. I have played the game about 1,000 times, and it works like a dollar watch. The bugs are out of the rules. It is similar in mood to chess and played on a standard checkerboard. Has enough dignity and interest, I think, to become the third popular checkerboard game. He goes on to describe it a little bit more here. But what I like is that he says, plenty of sales appeal, particularly for veterans itching to show how much they know about tactics, because this game actually is sort of a war game played on a chessboard.
All right.
And he says, a 9-year-old can learn it, all the neighborhood kids can play it and love to play it. He goes on to talk about having a patent, etc. There is also in this box, if you open it up a little bit more, a little history of it. And Peter, you'll like this. The introduction to the history is written by James S.A. Corey.
Oh, cool. Whoa. All right.
So it's good.
Wow.
I won't read the introduction, but it is up to their level of writing. It's a great introduction.
Damn.
And in here, you can see they have all of the iterations. You can see his handwritten notes as he was going through it. And at the end of the whole thing, you have from the Salfield Publishing Company, Dear Mr. Vonnegut, today I am returning to you your material for the game GHQ. I'm sorry that I've been unsuccessful with it. The rejection letter.
Oh.
So this game, let me just pick this up. I will show you a little bit of it. So for people who are listening on audio, what I'm pulling out right now is the board. And the board, there's nothing spectacular. It is a checkerboard, essentially, in this case with some nice drawings on it. But the checkerboard, I'll just keep it folded over here, has, you'll see a couple of unusual markings. There's a star and some different shapes. Because in this game, can you see the pieces I'm holding up right now?
Yep. A little bit higher.
A little bit higher. Okay, so in this game, there's something equivalent to pawns, which are infantry.
Okay.
And then you have artillery, and it's very easy to tell them apart. They've even got little dots on them to show what they can do. And then there's a GHQ, which is just this little star here. And just like the queen or the king in chess, how good am I at chess? Just like the king in chess, that's what you must protect, and that's what the other side tries to get. It's very simple. There's artillery and infantry, and they come in 3 different strengths. They can move in different ways, and they fight to try to win the other opponent's headquarters. I've played it here at home a couple of times now, and I'm already thinking about strategies and way to get better at it. I honestly think if this had come out, if he had found a publisher, if he'd worked a little bit more to find just the right person, I really think this would be something people would talk about as one of the first, not the first, but as one of the foundations of the kind of games that we play today. It's really that good.
So it would be in that like sort of category like Risk, and it would be like one of those games.
I think it would be up there with that, because if you think about when he was trying to get it published in the late 1950s, that's when Gettysburg came out from Avalon Hill. That's around the time that Diplomacy came out, I think. So there was already an interest in these kind of games. I don't know, Joey, have you ever played any of those war games from that time?
I have not. There's a big following though in the town next to me at the Citadel Game Cellar in Groton, Connecticut, where I believe Axis and Allies got its name literally, and we did some play testing by the previous deceased owner, Pat.
Wow.
They still have a healthy old school war game bunch of followers there, and a great selection of old stock on those games. So I have not played it, but those things are a big hit in the town next to me.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. The aesthetics on the box are beautiful. It reminds me of those early, like 1960s Childcraft encyclopedias.
Yeah.
You know, those line drawings, and it looks like it even has some like coffee staining on it or something like that. I'm a sucker for that aesthetic.
It's very Kurt Vonnegut aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's a shame that you can't really, as an author, get that sort of flavor to come through in the rules for a board game, because you can read his early set of rules and he has very evocative terms that get sort of smoothed out as he edits it to make it more easy to understand.
All right.
But I will say this one other thing. If it had come out, it would have been the first game in history to use the idea of zone of control. So I forget exactly which game it was that actually was the first to do it, the first published game, but it wasn't until about 1960 or so. This was earlier than that. And so in a sense, Kurt Vonnegut invented the mechanic of zone of control in war games. So that's cool.
What does the GHQ stand for?
General Headquarters.
General Headquarters. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And it's interesting because Kurt Vonnegut, I think, for people who are fans of his work, will know that he was, actually, I don't remember what his role was in the military, but he was in World War II. And one of the most impactful things that happened to him at the time was that he was on the ground at Dresden during the firebombing of Dresden.
Ooh.
Which is one of the most horrific chapters in human history. It's right up there with the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima and other
firebombing of Tokyo.
Terrible things to witness. And he had severe PTSD for his entire life. And it really influenced his writing. He was quite the pacifist, obviously, as you would be, right? Mm-hmm. After all of that. And had a lot to say about the absurdity of life because of that. So it was a little unusual for him to write a war game, but this was really kind of before he had worked out all of those experiences and feelings. So maybe later in life, he would not have wanted to do one. But at this point, he still had enough military experience that was something he felt he could make a game out of.
What's the game length if you were to sit down and play it on average, would you say?
Pretty fast. It's about the same. Well, I wouldn't say it's, I think if you got really good at it, it would be about the same as a game of chess. So I think
we're not talking Risk here. We're not talking an all-night game of Risk. No.
I think experienced players could play through a game in 30 to 40 minutes, or faster if somebody's better than the other. We took about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 30 minutes because we're learning the rules still. So fast game. So that's GHQ, and it's not just interesting because it's Kurt Vonnegut. It's really a good game. So try it out. Peter, you're next.
Yeah. All right. So talking about old games, right? So I was online, and I don't even know where I ran across this, but I think it might have been one of those YouTube videos that pops up because I watch a lot of history, YouTube stuff, and probably a lot of gaming stuff. And it was in my algorithm or something. But this game came up, and it's called Nine Men's Morris. And this game dates back to the Roman Empire, if not earlier. They found where they've etched it in the side of like throne chairs, where soldiers had etched it into the side with the boards, and they played it on the side of a chair.
Wow.
But I'll take the screen here. This is what the board looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only move along where the lines are, so where these lines are. But the way it's played is it also uses two colors of pegs. So you get a light peg and a dark peg. Could be black and white or whatever.
So let's describe that board for people that are listening. So
yeah. So I got a board, and so the board has three holes in three lines. I guess that's nine men's Morris. I guess it's 9 men. And but they're on a side, so each side, so it's a square board. So it sort of
makes an asterisk.
Yeah, there's 3 squares going out. Each corner and the center of each square has a peg in it, and there's a line between each square on the through the middle of all sides of the squares.
Yeah.
So the text on this says. That Nine Men's Morris is a strategy board game for 2 players dating at least to the Roman Empire. Consists of a grid with 24 intersection or points. Each player starts with 9 pieces, one with a light color, one with a dark. And the goal of the game is you form what are called mills, and that's 3 pieces in a row. And this can be horizontally, diagonally, or vertically. And once you do that, you get to take one of the other player's pieces off the board. And the last person with a piece on the board wins. So that's the objective of the game. And so you start with an empty board, and then you each put a piece on. I put one on, you put one on, I put one on, you put one on. And then we start playing. And you can, once all our pieces are on the board, you can move one piece, one square, or one peg over. And your goal is basically just to match 3. And as soon as you match 3 of your pieces, you get to take one of those off. I just thought it was really cool. I like all these old, like these super old games that have been around forever, because like everybody thinks about chess, right? Everybody knows chess is like this super old game and all. And it's true, totally true. And it's changed over the years. But when I found this, I had to have a copy of it because I was like, this is really cool, man. This game goes back forever. This is a game that people have been playing for thousands of years. The only other game I know of like this is it's called the game of Ur, which is supposed to be even older. They found that found that in the pyramids. It was sort of like an old, like they found it in Egypt, like ancient Egypt. So I don't know. I just have a real affinity for these old games.
Do you have any idea why it's called Nine Men's Morris?
I do not. I mean, I was going to say that I think it's the three pegs on a side in 3 rows, which would be the 9 men. But I don't know where the Morris comes from.
We have to find out because the first thing I think of is Morris dancing.
Okay.
And if there's any way to do Morris dancing while playing this game, I want to see it happen.
I don't even. What is Morris dancing?
Joey, do you know Morris dancing?
I do. Only because, as a Connecticut native, you might know this as well. There's a famous little nature preserve called the Devil's Hop Yard, where every
already a good name.
Yeah, the Morris men go up to the highest peak and they do that celebratory dance to welcome in the solstice, I believe.
Really, right here in Connecticut.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. If you've never been to Devil's Hop Yard, lot of lore there, including a group of karate practitioners being attacked by a gargoyle-like entity.
Wow.
It was in the Hartford Current. Yeah, back in the early 90s. Yeah, a lot of weird stuff up there.
This is amazing. Where is it? Where is it?
Not too far from Gillette's Castle, I think. Have you been to Gillette's Castle?
Yeah, I've been to Gillette's Castle.
It's right around that area, Jay.
Yeah, I love going up to that area. There's an animal, not sanctuary, rescue, like a large farm animal rescue that I like to visit up there. So And we got to see this.
Yep.
Got to see this.
So, hey, I just looked this up, and apparently it's a corruption of a Latin word. So the Latin word murallus means game piece.
Okay.
That's cool.
Well, we will find out more, but mostly I want to go see some Morris dancers and bring the game and play it. All right. Moving on to our next story. So I've already talked about this game a couple of times because, as people might know, I'm incredibly excited about the fact that there's a new Discworld game coming out. There has been a Discworld RPG before. There was a GURPS version, but now Modiphius has the rights and they've made a whole new system for it. And they've just released the first actual play video. So I've got a chance to see how the game's played, how it goes. I'm more excited than ever. Joey, are you a Discworld fan?
It's on my list for the winter. I'm getting through my autumn books, but I picked up a collection that I'm going to start pretty soon. It's always been something that's been recommended to me for a while. It's just I haven't gotten into it on the queue yet.
Well, don't start with the first book. I don't know if anybody told you that, but you don't need to read them in the order they were published. There's a bunch of different, recommendations out there about what order to read them in.
Yeah.
Take any recommendation you like. Just don't start with the first one because, it's his first book. He was finding his voice. Start when he's really into it.
So I respect your opinion, and you know me well. What would be your recommendation to start with?
Well, here's what it comes down to is the thing about Discworld is there are different sort of spheres that he likes to do it in. Everything's set in the same world, but the stories tend to either be Night Watch stories. So there's ones that are set in the city that are very much about Commander Vimes and the Night Watch, and it's sort of gritty. They're all fun, right? It's sort of gritty and that sort of thing. And then there are the wizard stories that are all set around the Unseen University and Rincewind, the hapless wizard, who spells wizard wrong when he puts it on his hat.
Great.
And then the third one, which are actually some of my favorite, are the ones that are more rural. They're all set around the witches. So there's Nanny Og and Granny Weatherwax, and these witches who live in a small town called Lancre. And they're my favorites. I would start with one of the witches' stories. There's one
that sounds like my cup of tea. Yes.
There's one called Equal Rights with RITES. That's the one I would start with. Start with Equal Rights.
There's one more category. There's the Mort stories.
The what?
The Mort stories.
Yeah, there are. They're good too. There are a smaller set of them. They're all around. One of the major characters in Discworld is Death. And Death is a very likable character.
Yes.
They're very relatable. So
yeah, okay.
And of course he also has a sidekick, the Death of Rats. So he's a little skeleton of a rat. Yeah. But so getting to the game, because the question is, when you have a game that's based around a property like this, can it actually give you the feeling of being in that world? Because presumably, if you're buying a game based on a property you like, it's because you've always wanted to get into that movie or TV show or comic book or novel or whatever it is. It does. As far as I'm concerned, it does. They put their thumb on the scale and they got really good players. They had 3 actors who were amazing. They completely got into their characters so well. They played a gargoyle, a troll, and an Igorina. Because in Discworld, Igors are actually an entire race. They all speak with a lisp. They all are made of lots of different parts that they put together on their own. But yeah, all these actors were great. And they were playing a starter story that was out of one of the novels. So that was good. And the system was what I thought was just beautiful. It actually wasn't, it had a little bit in common with our own game, Top Secret, plug. In that the better your die type, or the better you are at something, the bigger die that you get. Mm-hmm. So in this, the primary mechanic is that the GM always gets what's called the narrativium die. It's an 8-sided dice, 8-sided die. Because in the books, Terry Pratchett talks about how narrativium is sort of like the 5th element, the power of narrative. And so the GM rolls a D8, and then the player gets a die type based on how well they can argue for their ability to do the thing based on who their character is. So they can say, if you are a gargoyle who in the Discworld is the best at watching, because that's basically what they do. They sit and watch, and you say, I'm watching for something. You can say, I'm a gargoyle. I've got the ability to sit very, very still for a long period of time. I think I'll be great at looking for this. And then, yep, here's your D12, which happens to be the biggest dice, just like in Top Secret. And then it's just a roll off against each other. Very simple. And there's one other mechanic that I love. And this is one that really Discworld fans will like. There's a joke built into the mechanic, which is that if you can convince the GM that you've got such an audacious plan, it's 1,000,000 to 1, but it just might work, it will work. Because in the books, when it gets down to 1,000,000 to 1 chance, 9 out of 10 times, 1,000,000 to 1 chance works. So that's the joke. So yeah.
Must have an extensive character class section.
It must. I haven't had a chance to see any of the previews yet, but it seems like they really went to town on this. It looks like, what I've seen, they have Paul Kirby illustrations. It looks beautiful. So they can have all my money.
So there are no, it sounds like there's like no stats or skills or whatever. You have a character type, and your character type can do what that character type does.
It pretty much seemed like it to me. That's what I got out of the play, which is kind of what I would want in a game like this, because I wouldn't want to be spending all my time dealing with tables and charts. I'd want to spend all my time playing in the Discworld.
Okay.
So I think that's what it is. So, so I've got a little money left after backing the Weird Heroes of Public Access, but only a little. So I'll use that for Discworld.
Thank you.
And that is our segue. So let's meet Joey Royale.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you. Oh, and happy belated birthday, Jason.
Oh, thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you very much. I'm going backwards now. I've decided it'd be better. To do that.
And Elvis sends his regards as well. He's a big fan.
Oh, good. And for anybody who doesn't know, that's not Elvis Presley.
No. Elvis Royale, my son.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Great kid. Great kid.
Yeah. He actually did some art for the book.
Oh, okay. Well, let's begin by telling people what Weird Heroes of Public Access is all about.
Sure. So very short, the elevator pitch is Weird Heroes of Public Access. You and your pals play public access hosts in a pre-internet analog kind of suburbia where the town of Fairhaven, where you're located, that's the setting, is under the mysterious, unrelenting full moon. And as a result, all sorts of weird Kolchak, X-Files, Erie, Indiana kind of stuff is happening in your small town. And who but the Weird Heroes of channel WHPA TV 13 under the management of the station manager, i.e. the DM, leads you on these mysteries while also interacting with the strange NPCs that inhabit Fairhaven itself, like Hot Debbie, the girl who works at the Stop and Shop checkout, or, Whiskey Pete, the drunk who hangs out by Sassafras Cove and sees the sightings of the lake monster.
Whiskey Pete. Keep your pants on, Whiskey Pete.
You're familiar. Yeah. We had a great session at ShireCon.
Yes. Yeah. So I've played WHPA with you. I've played WHPA with my home group. I'm a huge fan. I don't think, Peter, I've had a chance to play it with you. I don't know if you've had a chance to play it.
I haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Yes. So I'm just going to say what I love about this game is that there is enough mechanically that you don't feel that you're just what's the word for it? What's the word when you pick a word out of the air? And improvisation. How ironic. I can't remember the word improvisation. It doesn't feel like an improv session. There's mechanics. It's if you're a hardcore role player, there's enough there for you. But I just love the regular people, ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. Is that a good way to say it?
Yes, it is. I mean, my kind of mantra about this project is finding the fantastic amongst the mundane, and really giving those underdogs a place to really become underdog, underdog, the cartoon, like, from mild-mannered person who gets prank called and, eggs thrown at their car into the hero that saves the town. But nobody really knows they saved the town. They're not getting it.
And that's the thing, is that the weird heroes, the game isn't played to mock them. The game is played to lift them up. This is what I love the most about it.
Out of the basements and into the streets.
Yes.
This was a project of COVID. I had done a couple of projects starting out. I started gaming around 2015. I'm 44 now, so I'm a late bloomer. And I started with DCC, which I immediately fell in love with, and I immediately wanted to start creating. I was as a hobby, I was a musician before, a singer in a band. I'd love writing lyrics, and they were mostly murder ballads or story songs, a la Nick Cave and stuff. And when I got into role-playing games, like, ooh, I can now, turn my songs into stories that people can play in. And so, I did some stuff with DCC, and I did One of Us, which is Sideshow Salvation in a Dystopian Dust Bowl. So basically, it's Freaks, Todd Browning's Freaks, the role-playing game. Then I did Ninja City. So I guess I was going towards this, which was like an 80s VHS thing. Outsiders with day jobs, or just outsiders because of nature, that are cast into these hero roles. And I guess this was the natural progression, going all in. But it would happen during COVID, and it started out as a 24-page zine that I really just wanted to build a community. So I started with the Fairhaven 99. So Fairhaven's the setting, and I made 99 copies that were available online, through my Etsy shop. And it was very word of mouth. And the Fairhaven 99, those original subscribers for $10, they got the zine. But then every month I would send out an envelope with just like an obituary and a prayer card. And the prayer it would be an NPC, and the prayer card would have a crypto quote on it, or a flyer for the opening of the new mall, the dedication of the fountain, which had a pamphlet adventure. So I really was lonely, and I was in my basement, and I wanted to build this community of like-minded weirdos. And from that, it grew. I did that for about 6 or 7 months, and then I actually started to put out more actual zines. Tales from Fairhaven Volume 1, Volume 2, Station Manager's Guide, The Life, Death, and Undeath of Sherman Glimp. Thank you, X-Tech. X-Tech is the evil tech pharmaceutical corporation that nobody really knows about, but always is doing strange experiments. And Looking for the Magic, which is giving your heroes psi power. So it just kind of grew. And I got tired of carrying around all these zines. And I'm like, let's just put it in, let's squeeze them all together in an omnibus. And here's a proof that I got in the mail of the book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Now give us the full 360 on this.
Okay, so
Give us a little spin.
This is a painting by Hayden Hall, an artist from Philadelphia who I became friends with, and that's actually him. He has a public access show. That's Luther Vandross. So I said, you got to put yourself in on the cover. And then, of course, we have a Jazzercise guy that some people, akin to a popular YouTube video. You have your holy roller evangelical guy, and then, of course, everybody's favorite, the ventriloquist. You got a Flatwoods kind of monster. There's a big crypto thing, and then kind of like your analog horror face in the machine video dead kind of situation. So basically, this was also a vehicle for me to get Hayden to do an oil painting of my game. So it's amazing.
So Hayden actually has a public access show.
Yeah, he is somebody I met through another group of friends that wrote a game called Don't Tell Mom and Dad, which is a lot like Goonies. So those are my good pals, and I met that crew from I met Hayden through that crew.
I honestly didn't know that there were still public access channels broadcasting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. You've got YouTube, so there's still broadcast public access shows?
Yes, there is actually in the town next to me, right down the street from that gaming shop I was talking about.
Yeah.
There is still right next to the Magic the Gathering Warhammer hobby shop. There is, so every time I go get cards with my kids, right next door, there it is. There's a public access studio. YouTube and digital cable has not killed it completely.
That's
There
amazing.
are still broadcast shows, and I know there are still some across the United States. YouTube has taken, the internet has kind of taken away that kind of analog sheen, that kind of like hazy kind of 80s filter,
Well, that's the thing, is the aesthetic of the public access show.
You're right.
Is very important to it.
Yes. And Hayden's Luther's Mid-Fright Snack, his show, has that, like, they have mastered the VHS glitch, and they do shoot everything on VHS. So that kind of stuff. And then since I met the internet, I have been obsessed with finding public access shows. It's always spoken to me. I think what lit that fuse was Pee-wee's Playhouse and UHF. Those were the seeds that really, other than the ones I used to prank call in my town. This is really a love letter to my town.
What was the show that Martin Mull did back in the 70s that was a mockumentary of public access shows? Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Fernwood Live.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great one. With what? I'm going to forget his name now because he's one of my favorite guys of all time. He just
I can see his face in my head with the dark hair. I can't remember his name either. But
I am disrespecting one of my idols right now,
I
feel terrible about it. It's the nerves of being on stage.
I'll tell you though, while we try to remember him, one of the things that drew me to WHPA in the first place was that I have not always been a fan of public access in general, but I had a friend in the 90s who had a public access show. I found out later that it was one that people thought was a big deal. So his name was Skippy Lowe, and it turns out that Martin Short based his character of Jiminy Glick on Skippy.
Oh,
that is awesome.
So now when I've got my character that I like to play regularly in WHPA, who is Skippy Wonderman, who's sort of a combination of Skippy Lowe and Larry Ferrari.
Nice.
But that just playing the game brings me back. You know what it really does? It kind of brings my friend Skippy back to life in my mind. And that's special to me because it's nice to kind of think about him regularly when I do that.
This is seeped in nostalgia. This is really an opportunity. It's an escape pod back to a time that I really loved growing up. So when I was writing this game, like I said, back in code, it was very difficult. I'm a public educator, administrator, so that was a very stressful time for me. And I would take my breaks, during lunch and just write what's going to keep me going. I had a little notebook in my phone. I still do. And I made a list of all the things that I love. And it was Pee-wee's Playhouse, UHF, and Weird Al. It was, the Jerky Boys. It was a big thing in this was Walter Mercado from Univision.
Wait, I don't know Walter Mercado.
Walter Mercado was an astrologer that was on the Spanish channel throughout the 80s and 90s. He passed away. There's a beautiful documentary on Netflix called Mucho, Mucho Amor, which is about Walter Mercado. But he used to wear these beautiful, like, outer space capes, and he had this coiffed blonde hair. And as a kid, you really couldn't figure out his gender. And he was just very mysterious as a kid, especially because I couldn't speak Spanish as a kid either, but I would just watch him in awe.
You're just watching him.
Right.
I was watching him. Scorpio, Aquarius. Like the closest thing to a real wizard I've ever seen. But he was just always so uplifting. And watching this documentary around that time too, really, it's that thing, that outcast, that underdog that said to hell with to hell with everybody. I'm going in front of that camera. Let them throw the tomatoes, but I have a message of positivity to bring. And that's why it's Weird Heroes of Public Access.
Wow.
But I want to ask you, Jason, if you don't mind, why this is interesting to me. Why don't you like public access?
Oh, no, I don't mean I didn't like it. What I mean is that I didn't follow it. I didn't have a particular affinity for it. It was just one particular friend who did public access.
Because I asked that question because as a kid, as an ignorant kid, I used to look at them as the easy target. There was like a political talk kind of conspiracy one in my town, and I was infamous for prank calling it all the time. ruining these people's like 15 minutes of fame
Oh.
just because I was a wise guy 12-year-old. And like at the time I didn't appreciate it, but I think I took it for granted because, as you guys said, when's the last time you really saw public access on TV?
Right.
Well, so the thing is, I grew up in a small town in Iowa, and we
Yeah.
did not have a public access channel.
Yeah.
Or if we did, I didn't know how to find it. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming they were always on the UHF somewhere, right?
Yeah, it was usually around that, and then it switched over to like local stations, usually somewhere between 13 and 24 by the Weather Channel, you know. But when I moved to New York for college in the late 90s, it was filled. And through the 80s,
Oh, yeah.
New York had some of the best public access in the world. And one of the greatest of all time to me, which is a huge influence here, is a show called Beyond Vaudeville, where they have all the episodes on YouTube now. But Frank Hope, the host, he would go to Star Trek or sci-fi conventions or find people on the street, bring them in and give them their, old 1930s, vaudevillians and stuff, come back and do their shtick like we take that stuff for granted now. Like that's everywhere. But back then, cons were a very special thing, dusty and musty old hotels. Yeah. There's that kind of grime to it all. And that's what I'm trying to capture in this. And it's like you said, not making fun of them at all. It's putting them on a pedestal, but also keeping that kind of yellow sticky patina on it as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if everybody's game plays the same as when you're running it. I try to run it the way you do because I'm like, oh, this is how you run it. But, with the station not the station managers, how do we want to describe their lair, basically? The station?
Yeah, it's the basement of the television studio that you have to enter through a vending machine by typing in the correct soda code, like, Fanta Tab, Fanta Mellow Yellow. That it opens up and there's a pole going down to the basement. And actually in the book, you have to roll as to how the station manager manifests. You never actually meet the station manager incarnate. He or she can come through in a Ouija board, ventriloquist dummy, a Morse code machine, a ticker tape, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and
it's
then
very
of course,
Radio Shack analog kind of style.
And the Little Bastards, how did they end up in there? But before I ask how they ended up, let's explain who they are.
Yeah, sure. The Little Bastards are a group of denim-clad, red-headed, mulleted, flat-top ne'er-do-wells. They're the juvenile delinquent game. And they started kind of off the cuff. I hadn't planned for them to be in it. They weren't supposed to be canon, but I wanted to introduce the table of new gamers to the mechanics, basically combat quickly. So as soon as you're ready to go on your mission, to kind of add insult to injury or show the oppression you are up against as a small town public access host, it's me as a kid pulling up on the bike.
I was just going to say, are the Little Bastards you?
Absolutely. And the kid on the cover of the Little Bastard zine is Elvis in a leather jacket as a young kid. So they show up, they're firing bottle rockets from poster tubes. They got slingshots. They're messing up your van, and they always pop up at the wrong time to get in the way. So you realize where you stand in the social hierarchy of your town.
Wow.
And they're led by the infamous stepdad, who appears to save them at the last minute in his root beer El Camino.
There's a lot of Trailer Park Boys going right there with the bottle kids. And I forget who the guy is in Trailer Park Boys who has the Corvette. Cyrus. I kind of think of the stepdad as Cyrus from Trailer Park Boys.
Okay. All right. I've never seen Trailer Park Boys. So people have pointed that out before. Okay. I'll check it out.
Definitely your aesthetic. I think it would be right up your alley.
Well, there's also, I want to mention that these were not public access shows, but they were takes on it. So you got, Wayne's World.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And Bob and Doug's,
Great Northern Adventure.
Yeah.
I promise not to sing the song.
No. But they were, they weren't public access, but they were comedies, about public access. So they can
I think those were pretty loving about their characters too.
Yeah, they were.
And that shows you how pervasive public access is. There's this it's not big, but there's this steady undercurrent if you grew up in a certain age where you've come across some sort of this bizarre media. And I chunked this in with the unmarked VHS tape. You know, you
Yes.
never knew exactly what was going to happen, and you never knew if it was like somebody was going to pour their heart out and cry on stage, or it would be like a Bud Dwyer situation where it's just like, whoa. So there's like
this could hurt somebody.
right. There's a faces of death aspect to it. It all existed in that same kind of sphere for us growing up. Like that's the kind of media we had access to, whether our parents didn't want it to. That's why there's like a slight darkness under all this as well. It was
there's always this
behind
idea.
the cowboy doors in the video.
Oh, yeah, the cowboy doors, right?
Yeah.
Is
Jesus,
the cowboy doors?
so wait a minute. So you're saying that, right? That was in my town. So obviously it was in your town, right? So was that a thing that was everywhere?
So this is the thing, man. You just tapped into something. Fairhaven is the town where this takes place in, right?
Yeah.
There's a Fairhaven. I'm not sure about Hawaii. I'm not sure about Alaska, but in the continental 48 states, I'm pretty sure there's a Fairhaven in every single state. Fairhaven is everywhere. That's intentional.
Okay.
And that experience that you had, where'd you grow? Did you grow up in Maryland?
Yeah, Baltimore.
Yeah, I grew up in Connecticut. I got friends in upstate New York. I got friends in the Tri-County area, Jersey. We all had, it's weird, we all had this experience, and a part of WHPA too, like sometimes when you're going through the woods to find something, you're going to come across, and let me know if you experienced this as well growing up, that stash of adult magazines that was in the woods randomly, right?
Yes.
Or in our case, we would often find them at the construction sites.
Yes. So there were these shared experiences. When I wrote my list, like some of those things are on there. It's like, what is the umbrella that encapsulates all of this? I don't know. It's the station in the wood. It's the station beyond the train tracks that was built out of cinder blocks, probably out of a WPA project, where at first it was a news station and it got twisted somehow into, the last American cowboy playing his guitar and doing lasso tricks in a New England suburb.
Wait, I want to share this one. So Shanbot says, Shanbot V42 says, The Red Green Show. Have you guys ever watched that? I've watched The Red Green Show. I like it. It's funny.
The Red Green Show?
Yeah, it's just called The Red Green Show.
I am going to write this down.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure that was public access, but it may have started as public access because it was. I know I've seen it on TV, but it does have that look that it could have been a public access show.
All right, I got to check that out. There's a lot of great analog horror out right now too on YouTube. Like I think it's like Channel 58 is a really awesome one where it's a lot of emergency that are they're fictional, but they're very, very disturbing that I really love too. Yeah. So a lot of people are kind of embracing this media or that era and turning into some cool stuff.
So the thing is about WHPA that I loved so much. So the first time I saw it was when you and the others came to TotalCon. I don't know if that was your first TotalCon.
I think it was. Yeah.
So how far along were you at that point with the game?
At that point, so I think WHPA in zine form came out in COVID, so like 2-3 years ago. So WHPA by that point was starting to surpass the first 99 people. That's when they first started to sell it. So it was early on, Jay, to your point.
So that was the thing that I loved, was that zine aspect to it. I love zines. It's always been in my blood. I got started making zines back when I was a teenager. And it just fits so well for this type of game. But now you've got to kind of move beyond zines, huh?
I struggled with this, man. I struggled with this because the zines are not going to die. Like there's more zines coming out afterwards, but I wanted to spread the word. I wanted to get it out to more people. And it was kind of like a business decision too. Like, let's be real. I got, I'm doing this from my basement. I got a full-time job that's very stressful a lot of time. And I have a family that I want to spend time with. And I'm putting a lot of effort in this, so I got to make a little bit of money so I can put it back in and, take the kids out to dinner and stuff like that. So that's the part of it too, like getting this out there.
Yeah.
Goodman Games has been awesome to me. Exalted Funeral, they're going to be helping me with some distribution for this. So part of it was a business move and to get it out to more people. And it's also tough bringing all the zines every day, because now I got I'm like up to 8 zines, and now I got awesome friends that are doing like third-party stuff. They're doing. I think here's one right here. Yeah, I got a couple right here. Like here's a great one, Electric Brain. That's one that my friend did.
I haven't seen that one yet. Who did that?
Yeah. This one is from Vampire Cinema Productions. This is from my friend Kyle. You can I just recently started a Weird Heroes of Public Access Discord, or Get Haunted Industries Discord, and all those guys are hopping on there sharing stuff. Stefan Surratt, Tim Snyder, a bunch of those guys have done some really nice, their own takes, but with a similar spice on WHPA.
Yeah,
and part of this
Discord, but I just kind of came in and I haven't been back, so I need to get back and spend the time in there.
And the stretch goal of the Kickstarter is it's a zine that's everybody's going to get, featuring John Hambone McGuire, Tim Deschênes, my buddy Ben Grimes, who's on the pizza party with me, Brian Shutter from Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland, Ian McGarty, like my crew, Levi Combs.
All people we love.
Yeah. Tim Snyder again. So, and my friend The Lich from his show, The Liching Hour. But this thing is getting so big, it's like already at 40 pages. So this is going to be quite a supplement. And my hands are off of it completely, which is great. I love having other people take on it.
So some of the things you've got now in the it's a backer kit, not a Kickstarter, right?
Correct. It's my first time using backer kit. Yeah.
Yes. And so you've got some special dice, I think I saw, that got unlocked.
Yeah. So we have the golden. One of the stretch goals was the golden die, the golden D6 of the station manager. So it's a gold metallic. So mechanics wise, this runs on pools of D6s. It's very simple. Based on your characteristics, you roll a pool of D6, and any 5 or 6 is a success. So, not a lot of crunch there. But so the D6 is basically the only die. Kind of
similar to Paranoia or something like that.
Yeah. So you got that. We also unlocked, there is the Sherman Glimp D6. Sherman Glimp was in the beginning just an NPC. That was the obituary and prayer card. Guy went missing, and that turned into a whole zine adventure. It was my first whole zine about one topic: the life, death, and undeath of Sherman Glimp. He is a heroic vampire who used to work at Glimp Bites, which was the local kind of Radio Shack of Fairhaven. So we have his face on there. He's become quite the mascot. And we have unlocked an X-Tech die, which is the kind of evil, nefarious corporation behind the big fence. And I think once we reached 27,000, which we're quickly approaching, which completely blows my mind, where I'll announce it here for the first time, ladies and gentlemen. It will be the Little Bastards official D6. So,
yes. I have to have that.
Yeah. That's what they asked for. That wasn't part of the plan. I did not even come up with stretch goals because I was just hoping to cross the goal of 4,000 just to get the books printed and to make my money back on the cost of the painting by Hayden. And what I paid my son to do this drawings of the aliens and Brian Shutter's cover layout. So the fact that I'm in double digits, I don't know what to do. It's nuts. I'm just like giving.
Well, what I always look for is not even so much the amount of money that a particular campaign raises, but how many people are back.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can raise a lot of money if you make it a $200 thing. You had, the last time I looked, well over 500 backers. I mean, what's it up to now? Do you know?
Yeah, I think tonight I got home from dinner. I'm around 510. And you're right. That's the money doesn't make sense to me because I don't even know how, like, I got 500 friends. That's what I feel like. 500 people want to share the experience of being a public access host. in the
Imagine
suburbs.
being in a room with those 500 people.
I wish I could be, man,
Yeah.
because the stories we could share with each other. And like Pete said, oh, I know those cowboy doors. That's what this whole thing was about from the beginning. The whole thing was me in the basement in COVID, isolated and lonely. And, you know, I'm just making something for myself so I don't go crazy. Next thing you know, I got people buying this. And now I got 500 people that want to play this game and share that experience with me. That's what I'm freaking out about. I love it. It's blowing my mind.
It's such a good thing. We're so happy for you for getting to this point. It just really makes me so my heart gets full when I see friends do well. And so, this absolutely just thrills me.
Yeah.
One of the best things ever, I'm sorry to bring this up, but I just got to let you guys know too. Like, one of the coolest things ever is that I got to play and meet your friend James at ShireCon. We got to play through with him and Mary. And I was immediately friends with him. I had seen him and Mary around cons, and I always thought they were the cool kids. You know, they were like the veterans. They're like that cool kids table in the cafeteria at the high school. And I finally got to play with it. I'm like, oh, this is the beginning of something awesome. And then, he passed away. But to me, that was one of the greatest gifts, that I got to experience that with him so shortly before he passed.
And he really had a good time, and he was talking about it afterwards. And
Dr. Funkenstein will become Fairhaven canon. He is going to be memorialized in an upcoming adventure.
That's awesome. Listeners, Dr. Funkenstein was James's character in Fairhaven.
Yep.
So
so James, it's perfect.
He will live forever in Fairhaven. Yeah.
Yes, James always loved exploitation films. So.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And like in the most loving way. Like,
sure.
You know.
Yeah. So thank you for bringing James on the show in our hearts tonight. That actually is very special, and I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, I think we're about at the end for tonight, and so let's just make sure everybody knows how they can find out more about WHPA Fairhaven, how they can get to the backer kit, and what else you have going on. Where do people find you?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook as Joey Royale, but you can find a lot of my stuff on Instagram, get_haunted_industries. There's a couple of tiers that you can get in on. There's the book. There's the book and some zines that have been out of print. And then there's a really special tier where you get the book, the zines, all the stretch goals, and there's a very strange zine I did that kind of went under the radar, and it was intentional because it was very, very strange. It was called the June Manifestations, where for 30 days I did a painting each day of a manifestation, which was some sort of thing that came through an entity that came through a television and delivered a message. And each one of those messages is kind of like a one-sentence adventure hook. So I'm doing, for those backers, you're going to get a personalized June manifestation. So I'm doing, I have a pile of them over there. I'm doing a whole bunch of new ones. I have a stack of 50 I have to get through where we stand right now. But everybody will get a hand-painted 5x7 acrylic June manifestation with their package too. We're getting weird.
Nice.
That's great.
But Jason, before we go, I just wanted to thank you, because I met you 2 years ago at ShireCon, and you were so welcoming. And I get very, I'm loud and I'm crazy and I eat pizza and all that. But like I still feel like the outsider because I'm new to all this. But you were so welcoming to me that first year. And then at ShireCon, you were so welcoming to my son at the same time. So thank you for being such a positive ambassador of the hobby and being so inclusive and just rolling with it and doing such creative stuff on your end too. I really appreciate that as a friend and as a dad and as the outsider coming in. You made me feel
that's very nice of you to say. I mean, you know what? It's a community, and it's so great to have somebody like yourself just having people join the community. I'd like to think that it's one that's welcoming to people, and it's great. You're not an outsider now.
No. Thank you. I've made some of my best friends I've ever had. Like, I never thought at 44 I'd be meeting people that are now like brothers and sisters to me. This hobby brings out so much good.
It really does. It really does. And, the people that we have listening to the show and watching the show, all part of the community too. And thanks everybody else for being part of it too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we will end for tonight. Thank you again, Joey. And we will see you all again next week.